friends, welcome to Online Tutor. I am Sanjay. In this video we'll discuss an important topic of Laravel, and that is all about RESTful API development using Sanctum Authentication. This is a course which starts from project setup up to API development processes. So here first I will discuss that what will be the complete playlist plan that will cover inside this entire video. So let's go to slide first. So we can see that this is our complete plan what we'll follow to create our APIs using Sanctum Authentication. So first we'll start from project setup, then we do database connectivity, then we see all about API controller settings, and finally the most important point, that is all about the settings of Sanctum Authentication package. Then we'll see API routes, and after creating routes, then we'll see the heart of this video is all about our API creation. So first we'll see all about the concept of registration API, login API, profile API, and logout API. So this is the complete plan what we'll see inside this entire video. And one more request, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that we can create such type of amazing content, amazing videos free for you. So first I will start all about with project setup. For project setup, I will go to its official website, that is laravel.com, click on documentation, and from documentation I will prefer Composer installation. So here I will search for Composer. Now here we can see that this is all about a Composer command. So I will copy, back to slide, open a new tab. So this is a Composer command to create a Laravel application. So in this command we are using Composer to create a project of Laravel of this project setup. So I will change the setup name, so I will call it as Laravel-Sanctum-APIs. Let's copy the command here, back to project terminal. So I am inside this YT folder. If I type ls, then we can see that already we have a folder inside this YT. Now I will create a new folder. So let's paste that command. So Composer, create project, Laravel/Laravel, and this is all about our project setup name. Press enter. Now we can see that installation now is started. Now successfully project has been installed. So let's go to folder structure. Now we can see that here we have a new folder with the name called Laravel-Sanctum-APIs. So I will open this setup into my VS Code editor. You can choose any of the editor. So open with other application, I will click on this select button. So successfully I have imported that project into my VS Code. Let's go back to project terminal. If I type again ls, then we can see now we have two folders. Now let's go inside this Sanctum APIs folder. So cd Laravel-Sanctum. Now we are inside our project setup. If I type php artisan, everything is okay. Now we'll use a command called php artisan serve to start development server. So let's use that. php artisan serve. Development server started. So to access project, I need to copy this URL. So copy link, back to browser, open a new tab, pasting it here, and this is all about the landing page of Laravel version 10. Now next we need to create a database. So first I will back to checklist, go here. So first we had completed all about our project setup. Now next we'll see database connectivity. So let's go to our phpMyAdmin, click on databases tab. So here we need to create a database. So I will call it as Laravel -means underscore YT underscore Sanctum underscore APIs. Let's copy that, click on create button. So successfully now we have created a database inside our phpMyAdmin. Back to editor, I will open .env file, search for db connection and all about the connection string variables. So here I will pass database equals to, this is what we had created. Now next for username, so for my phpMyAdmin it is admin and password is admin@123. In your case it may be different. So successfully now this setup has configured with this database. Now let's close this file. Now if I go back to browser, go inside landing page, let's reload that. So successfully now this database is connected with this application. So let's go back to our checklist. So successfully, now we have done all about database connectivity. Now next, in the third point, we need an API controller. Obviously, this is all about API development course, so we need a controller class from where we'll handle all about our API request. So let's go back to terminal. I will use the command php artisan means make controller to create our API controller class. But before creating our API controller class, let's go back to editor. I will go inside app, http controllers. So we want a API subfolder right here inside this controllers folder. It means we want to create our API controller class inside API subfolder inside this controllers folder. So let's use our make controller command. Back to terminal, close this development server, php artisan make controller, and first I will pass the folder name called API, and inside API I want this API controller class. Press enter. Now we can see that our controller class now created. Back to editor, go here inside controllers folder. Now we can see API subfolder, and here we have our API controller class. This is a normal controller class what we have created. So according to our need, we need to create our API methods. So as we know that inside this API development course, we need our API methods for registration, login, profile, and logout. So let's create all these 4 methods. Back to editor. So first I will create for register API, which we hit using post request type and pass form data. So public function register, and to access our form data we need to use request object. So let's pass it here request and request object. Now let's create another method for login API. So login API, this method also we hit using post request type, and inside form data we pass the email value and the password value. So here let's say public function login. To get access all of those form data, we need to pass here the request object. Now let's create for the profile API. So profile API, and this API we hit using get request type. So public function, and let's call it as profile. And the final method we need inside this API controller class, and that will be of logout method. So here this is for logout API, and this API means this method also we hit using get request type. So this will be get, and let's define method here public function logout. So successfully now we have created as per our need, as per the course need, all those methods inside this API controller class. Let's go back to our checklist. So successfully now we had created our API controller class and also created our API needed methods. Now let's see all about our Sanctum authentication package settings. So first thing first, what is Sanctum? So Sanctum is a composer package which we can install inside Laravel application to do all about authentication services. By using the concept of Sanctum, we can work with tokenized system. Now in a very simple definition, we can understand about Sanctum that it is a composer package which we can install inside Laravel application to create APIs which transmit our data from sender to receiver by the help of tokenized system in a very secured way. Now let's see all about the configuration and settings of this Sanctum authentication package inside Laravel. So as per the definition, I told that Sanctum is a composer package which we need to install inside Laravel setup to work with authentication services. But if you're talking about the older versions of Laravel like Laravel 8th version, so in that version we need that composer command to install this package inside setup. But it is very interesting to know that inside Laravel version 10, this is a by default package automatically integrated inside this Laravel version 10. If I go inside editor, let's open composer.json. So as we know that once we install any composer package, it will go automatically inside this require object or required-dev object. So we can see that inside this require object, here we have Laravel/Sanctum. So it means that we don't need any composer command to install Sanctum Authentication package inside this Laravel version 10. So if anyone says that we need composer command to install Sanctum Authentication, so there is no need inside Laravel version 10. Automatically this version automatically have this feature. So here this is all about for composer.json. Now to verify, if I go inside config folder, now we can see that inside this config folder we have a file called sanctum.php, which is a basic settings file. After the sanctum.php file, if I go inside database folder, go inside migrations, now we can see that inside this folder also we have one more migration with the name called personal access tokens. So this was the migration which we get after installation of Sanctum Authentication package via Composer. But this is the approach what we have followed inside Laravel 8th version. But here inside this Laravel 10, this is a by default migration available inside this migrations folder. So let's migrate all these tables inside our database first. I will back to project terminal, php artisan migrate, press enter. Now we can see that all tables now created inside our database. Back to browser. Go here, click on structure. Now we can see that all tables now created. So here we have a table called personal access tokens. So once we generate any token value using Sanctum, it means Sanctum token value, all those values will be stored inside this table. So this is all about Sanctum Authentication package. Now if we are talking about the middleware, so after getting the Sanctum Authentication package by default inside the startup, we have also a middleware. By the help of that we can protect our protected APIs. So let's go inside routes folder and I will open api.php. So inside this file we can see a magic. Let's open that. Now we can see that inside this api.php, here we have the middleware called auth sanctum. It means that by default Laravel version 10 has a feature of Sanctum and we can use this auth sanctum middleware to protect our protected APIs. So let's go back to checklist. So successfully, here we have discussed all about the complete discussion of Sanctum Authentication package inside Laravel version 10. Now we need API routes. So as we know that we need to create registration API, login API, profile API and logout API. So these APIs we need to create inside our API routes as well. Let's go back to editor, go inside api.php. So here first I need to import our API controller class. So use API controller. Once we import, go here. So I will go and comment these lines of code. Let's say API routes. Next, before creating APIs, we need one more discussion, and discussion is all about open routes and protected routes. So let's go back to our APIs list. So here we can see that we have registration API, login API, profile API and logout API. So if you're talking about register API and login, these are open routes. It means that to access these methods, we don't need any login or any token value. But if you're talking about profile API and logout API, it means that these are protected APIs, we need a valid token value. So these APIs, these routes will create inside a group, means route group, and that group will be protected using a middleware called auth sanctum. So let's go here. I will first register all about registration API and login API. So I will call route using post method, and here let's call it as register API controller class, and from controller class I will call register method. So this is all about for registration API, route, post method, and here for login API controller class, and from API controller class we'll call login method. So these routes are open routes. We don't need any login, so there is no concept of middleware. Now let's create our protected APIs routes. So first I will create a route group by using group method. Let's pass an array here, and inside this array let's pass middleware, and the middleware we'll use called auth::sanctum. Let's copy the syntax from here. Now inside this group method, inside the second value, I need to pass a callback function, and inside this callback function we need to register our profile API route and logout API route. So here, as we know that we hit using get request, so profile, this is all about API controller class, and from that class we'll call profile method. Next, using route get method, I will call Logout API. So it will be logout and API controller class, and from that controller class we'll call logout method. So this is all about the API route settings. Let's go back to the checklist. So successfully now API routes also completed. Now finally we'll start all about the core part of this course, and that is all about API development processes. So I will first start with register API. Back to editor, let's open API controller class, go inside register method. So as we know that to create any user we need the values. Let's go back to our table first, go inside users, structure. So we need values for name, email and password. Optionally, if we want like phone number, also we can add inside users migration, but currently it is okay. So here we need values for name, email and password. So let's go here. Inside this register method, first I will start with data validation. It means name, email and password, all three fields are required. So here, request object, I will call validate method, pass an array here, name, email and password, and these fields are required. So required will with the validation rule. So I will copy, paste in front of email and password. Now two more rules we want for this email value, and that is the email value what we enter should be a valid email address. So this is our second rule called email, and also once we register any user with any email, that email address should be unique throughout users table. So here the third rule we have called unique. It means that the email address what we use should be unique inside this users table. Now inside this password we'll add one more validation rule, and that is confirmed. So after data validation, this is all about data validation. After here, we need to use the concept of our user model. So if I go inside API folder, means app folder, models folder, so we can see that user.php, this is also a by default model Laravel has provided. So I need to use this user.php to interact with users table. So let's open that. Now inside this we can see here we have fillable array. It means we want all these values. Now let's go inside API controller class. So first I will load our user model. So use user model. Now by the help of user model we can interact with users table and we save our data inside that. So here let's say user, I will call create method. So here we are using model directly. We can also create an instance of that, and after creating instance we can call insert method, but here we are using model directly and calling the static method called create. Let's pass an array here. So the field we have called name, email and password. So the name value we can get all from request form data. So request variable, the key we have called name. Let's go for the email value. So request, this is the email key what we'll get from request form data, and for password, request password. And one more thing, that before saving our password we need to encrypt it first. It means instead of saving plain text value, we want a hashed value. So to make a normal string value into a hashed value, we need to use hash facade. So before using, let's say that use eliminate means we need to import it first. Eliminate support facades, and here I will call hash. After importing, let's go here and I will call make method. And by using make method, we can easily convert a plain text value into a hashed value. So after saving data, save data. Let's prepare a response here. So return response JSON status equals to true, message equals to user registered successfully. So this is all about the code logic of register method. Now let's open Postman, a tool. By the help of that we can do unit testing of APIs. So by the help of Postman, we'll test this user register API. So successfully I have opened Postman. So before that, let's go here and start development server, PHP artisan serve, press enter. I will copy project URL. So copy link back to Postman, put it here inside this URL bar. I need to select post request type. Let's go back to editor. So as we know that we are calling register API from api.php, so we need to add API prefix into our URL. So here after this project URL /API/register. Now next we need to go inside headers. I will pass header called accept application JSON. Once we pass this header, let's go inside body, select form data. So as we know that we need values for name, email and password. So here name, email and password. Now let's pass values for all these columns. So I will pass my name here. For email address, example@gmail.com, and password is from 1 to 6. So let's first see all about data validation. So I will not pass any value into a request. Click on set button. Now we can see validation is working fine. Now let's do testing with a valid email pattern. So I will get and let's put this dummy value. Click on send button. But before that, let's pass all these values. We are sending all this data, but email address is not a valid pattern. Now we can see that the email must be a valid email address. So let's pass our valid email value. Now let's click on send button. We can see the password field confirmation does not match, and it is coming. It's because inside our API controller class, inside this register method, here we have one more rule called confirmed. So once we add with any field, it means we want here something called password underscore confirmation. So as we have added confirmed here, so we need to add a field here called password confirmation, and inside this field we need to pass the same value what we have inside this password field. So let's copy from 1 to 6. I will click on send button. Now you can see user registered successfully. Let's go back to our table. Click on browse here. Now we can see the first user now created. So this is all about register API. Let's quickly create another user. I will pass the same email value. Click on send button. Now we can see the email has already been taken, and this is why because we have added one more rule, that is unique users. Now let's pass something different here. Password is from 1 to 6. Everything is okay. Click on send button. User registered. Back to table. Click on browse. Now we have one more row inside this users table. So successfully, this is all about register API. Now let's see the concept of login API, and this is the very important API for this course, because by the help of this login API we'll generate a Sanctum token value, and once we generate the Sanctum token value, then after that we can access all these methods like profile API and logout API. So let's see all about the concept of this login API. Back to editor, go inside API controller class, go inside login method. So first we need to implement data validation, because while working with this login API we need values for email address and password. So here request object, I will call validate method, pass an array here. Let's pass our rules. So email, it is required, and also the email value should be a valid email address. And next for password. So this is all about our form validation. So this is all about data validation. So once this validation will pass, it means we don't have any error. We have the values of email address and password. So after that, I will use the concept of user model to see that this email exists inside our database. So here let's say user equals to user model scope resolution operator. I will use where method. Let's say email. We get email from request form data, and I will use first method. So if this email exists inside our database, this is an object and it will be a user object, otherwise null value will be returned. So here what we can do here, let's say if not empty user, it means we have user object, we have some value inside this user variable. User exists, otherwise go here, let's return response JSON status equals to false, message equals to invalid login details. So this is all about failed response. Now let's go inside this if block. It means user exists. So then I will check all about password. Here we have checked only for the email value. Now we need to validate all about for the password. So we'll use the concept of again hash facade, but this time I will call check method. So here if hash, and from hash I will call check method. Now we can see from IntelliSense or from the hint section that we need to first pass all about the normal value, it means the plain text value, and inside second value we need to pass a hashed value. So in this first value, as we know that from request body, it means from form data, we are getting the password value, that is a plain text value. So I will pass it here. So request password comma, and in the second value this is all about the comparison parameter, all about hashed value. So as we know that inside our table we have the password which is saved inside hashed format. So we can access that password value by the help of this user object. So I will call user and password. So it will return true if this value and this value will match, otherwise means the false value will be returned. So go here, let's say return response JSON, let's say status equals to false, and message equals to, let's say password didn't match. So this is again we have the failed response. Now let's go inside this if block. It means user exists with this email and with this password. Now here we'll use the concept of create token method to generate a Sanctum token value. So here it's a token equals to, I will use the concept of user model object. So user, if I go inside model class, so we can see that already this model imported has API tokens, and also inside this class here we have has API tokens. It means by using user model object we can call create token method. So go here, I will call create token and inside this we need to pass the token name. So let's call it as my token. It will return various types of values, but I will access only the plain text token value. So here plain text token. So by the help of this line, by the help of this code, we'll get the Sanctum token value. Now let's go and return our response. So return response JSON status equals to true, message equals to login successful, and the third parameter we have called token, and in this we'll pass Sanctum token value. So this is the complete concept of login API method. Now let's quickly do a unit testing. Go here, I will copy the register API URL, open a new tab, pasting it here. Instead of calling register, I will call login, and once we call this route, so if I go inside api.php, this login route will call API controller class and login method. Let's go here, select post here, go to headers. I will pass accept application JSON. Now go inside body, select form data. We need to pass values like email address and password. So email and password. Without passing any value, if I click on send button, we can see our validation is working. Now let's pass the valid email and password. So if I go inside database, let's copy the valid email value, pasting it here. Password is from 1 to 6. Now let's say that I am doing some mistake inside this email value. This is an invalid email. Click on send button. Now we can see invalid login details, and this message is coming of this response. Now let's pass a valid email value. It means the user exists, but let's pass our invalid password. This time we have a valid email, but password is invalid. Click on send button. Now we can see password didn't match. Now let's pass the email and password which containing the valid values. Click on send button. Now we can see that status equals to true, message equals to login successful, and successfully now we have a token, and this is a Sanctum token value. Let's back to table. Go inside our personal access tokens. Now we can see that inside this table we have one entry, that is ID equals to 1. Tokenable type, this is all about user model. By the help of that we have generated this token value. This is tokenable ID equals to 1, which is user ID. Here we have the token name, what we had given inside code, and this is the token value. Now here we have a token value which is in plain text format, and once we generate then this token value, by the help of that we can access Profile API and Logout API. So successfully Login API also completed. Now let's talk about all about Profile API. Back to editor, go inside API controller class. I will go inside this profile method. So as we know that this method is protected method, so to access this method we need to pass a token value, and that token value should be a valid token. So once we pass token value, so automatically this middleware will work, that is auth sanctum. So if the token is valid, then we can access these methods, otherwise we'll have some error messages like unauthenticated. So inside this profile method, we'll use the concept of auth helper function. By using auth helper function, we can easily get all about the profile information of current logged in user. So here let's say data equals to auth helper function, and here I will call user method. Instead of using auth helper function, additionally we can use auth facade, but here I will use auth helper function. If we are talking about auth facade, so we can call it as like auth, and here scope resolution operator and user method. But before using auth facade, we need to import here. So use eliminate support. From support I will go inside facades and auth. So this is the complete package what we need to import before using that. but here I'm using auth helper function. So let's return response JSON, and here let's say status equals to 1, or let's say true. Message equals to profile data, and finally data, or we can call it as user, equals to data. So successfully, this is the complete logic behind this profile method. Now let's do a quick unit testing. I will go here. Let's copy the API URL of login, open a new tab, change login to profile, and this API will hit using get request type. Inside headers, I will pass accept application JSON. After this application JSON, also I need to pass authorization header. For authorization header, what we can do, let's go back to our login API. I will copy the token value, go here inside this profile API, and I will call authorization. And inside this authorization, the value will be bearer, space, and the token value. Now I'm not passing this authorization, click on send button. Now you can see unauthenticated, because this profile API route profile method is protected under auth sanctum. So we need to pass authorization, but what we can do here, let's do a mistake here. I will add, let's say 5, which is a special means extra character. Now this token value is invalid. I will click on send button. Again we are getting unauthenticated. Now let's remove this 5 character from here. I am passing authorization header as well as the valid token value. Click on send button. Now we can see status equals to true, message equals to profile data, and this is all about user information. All these data we are getting by using the concept of auth helper function. So successfully, now we have completed one more API, and that is profile API. Now let's see the last concept of this course, that is all about Logout API. I will go here, go inside API controllers, go inside logout method. This method is also protected. It means before calling, we need to pass authorization token value inside header. Now again, inside this method, I will use the concept of auth helper function, and I will call delete method. So here, it's auth helper function, user, by the help of tokens method, and finally I will call delete. So it means that current logged in user, all the tokens of current logged in user, I am deleting that. So after delete, let's say return response JSON, and here status equals to true, message equals to user logged out. And one more thing, when we call this logout API, it means logout method token will be deleted. Once the token will be deleted, it means that token value will not be used inside any APIs. For example, this token we have destroyed, so that token value will no longer available to use inside this profile API. So let's copy profile API URL, open a new tab. This time I will call logout. This is using get request type, go inside headers. First parameter will be accept application JSON. Go inside second header, that will be authorization. So I will copy the token value. Copy the token value here, authorization, bearer, space, and the token value. If I uncheck, click on send button, we can see unauthenticated. Now let's pass authorization, a valid key, and a valid token value. If I click on send button, it means current logged in user token will be destroyed, and now when we call this profile API using this token value, then we get unauthenticated. Let's see in action. Click on send button, choose a logout. When we call our profile API with the same token value, click on send button. Now we can see unauthenticated. So this is all about the complete concept of API development inside Laravel of version 10 using Sanctum Authentication. Let's go to our checklist. So finally, now we have completed Logout API. Again, I am telling you that for Sanctum authentication inside Laravel version 10, we don't need any installation of Sanctum package using Composer command. By default, all the features, all the functions, all the operations are by default available inside Laravel version 10. So I think that I have given you the basic concept of API development using Laravel and Sanctum authentication. So please like this video, share this video as much as you can, and also please subscribe to our YouTube channel. So for this video session guys, thank you for watching and have a great day.